Okay, so you're facing this mountain of information, maybe for an exam, maybe for work, or maybe you're just curious, and you need the fastest way to actually get it right to make it stick.
Right. And maybe you're staring at your notes thinking, just one more read through.
Exactly, that old habit.
And, well, that's precisely the trap. It feels productive, that rereading. Psychologists actually have a name for it, the illusion of fluency.
Illusion of fluency.
Yeah,
Okay.
you recognize the words, it feels familiar, so you think you know it. But put under pressure, it just vanishes.
Ah, okay. So this deep dive, it's based on what you're calling a student study playbook.
That's right, a playbook designed to get you past that illusion and into, real lasting understanding, measurable mastery.
I like framing it as an anti-cramming playbook. That really says something.
It does.
So our mission here is basically to give you the research-backed shortcuts. We're focusing on three main things.
Three pillars, yep. Effective cognitive techniques, smart time management, and keeping that focus sharp.
Okay, let's unpack that. What are some of these, like, surprising anti-cramming strategies the playbook recommends? Which one do you think is maybe the hardest for people to actually do?
Hmm, good question. I think the hardest one is probably also the most crucial. And that's where we have to start, really. Section 1, active learning.
Active
We
learning,
absolutely have to ditch the rereading habit and embrace something called retrieval practice.
retrieval practice. Okay, the anti-rereading method. But why? Why does forcing yourself to pull information out work better than just soaking it in?
Because real learning isn't passive absorption. It's an active process. You're literally pulling that information out of your brain.
Hmm.
And that effort, that sometimes struggle, that's what actually strengthens the neural connections. It makes the memory stronger, more durable.
Okay, so how do you do retrieval practice? What does the playbook say?
Well, it gives concrete techniques, like with flashcards. Don't just glance at the answer. You have to try and write it down or say it out loud before you check the back.
That forces the recall.
Exactly. Or a more intense way. Cover up your notes completely,
Yeah.
then try to scribble down everything you can remember about a topic or a chapter. Everything.
That sounds hard.
It is hard, but that's the point. When you can't recall something, that's not failure. It's data.
Ah, like a diagnostic.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It pinpoints exactly where your knowledge gap is. You want that difficulty signal.
Okay, retrieval practice makes sense. But then there's the timing. People love to cram, right? That one epic 7-hour caffeine-fueled night.
The classic all-nighter. Yeah.
So if I'm already stressed, already short on time, why is it better to do, say, 30 minutes a day for 5 days instead of one big 3-hour block? It feels less efficient somehow.
It feels that way, I know.
Yeah.
But your brain doesn't work like that. It prefers spaced exposure. That's space practice.
Space prep.
Spreading it out
Yeah.
with time gaps.
Yeah.
It forces your brain to retrieve the information again just as it's starting to fade.
Oh, interesting. So you're strengthening the memory right when it's getting weak?
Exactly. You're building that pathway under a little bit of stress, which is very similar to what happens in an actual test or presentation situation.
And closely related to spacing is interleaving. I think people often mix this up with just like multitasking.
Yeah, they do. Interleaving isn't multitasking. It's mixing up different subjects or different types of problems within a single study session.
So not just block practicing one thing.
Right. Don't do, say, 20 problems of type A, then 20 type B. Mix them up. Do a few A, a few B, back to A, maybe a C.
Why does that help?
The playbook really stresses this because it forces your brain to do two things. First, recognize underlying patterns and connect concepts. But second, and this is crucial, it learns to discriminate, to figure out which strategy or formula to use for which problem.
Ah, okay. So you're not just learning the what, you're learning the when. You have to recognize problem A versus problem B.
Exactly. That discrimination is key.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me, moving beyond just recall to, like, deep understanding. The elaboration techniques.
Yes. Elaboration is where you go beyond just knowing facts. You start asking why. You ask how.
Connecting the dots.
You connect the details to the bigger picture. So don't just memorize the date the treaty was signed. Understand why those specific clauses were in there and how they influenced what happened next.
And the gold standard for checking that deep understanding, that's the Feynman technique, right?
Absolutely. Named after the physicist Richard Feynman.
Mm.
The core idea is simple but powerful. If you can't explain a complex idea in simple terms,
Like to a kid.
exactly like to a fifth grader, using simple language, no jargon, then you don't really understand it yourself.
Ouch, that's a high bar.
It is. But if you stumble, if you have to use complicated words, you've just found a weakness in your own understanding. It forces you to be incredibly clear.
Love that. Okay, one more cognitive technique before we move on. What about people who learn visually? How can visuals be used effectively, not just, making notes look pretty?
That's dual coding. It's about combining words and meaningful visuals.
Meaningful being the key word there.
Absolutely. You're creating two ways for your brain to grab onto the information, the verbal path and the visual path.
Yeah.
It's really effective for memory.
So what kind of visuals work?
Think beyond just highlighting. Draws diagrams, flowcharts, mind maps, timelines. The research was pretty clear. Using different colors strategically, like to group related ideas or show hierarchies, that gives the visual a real learning purpose, not just decoration.
Okay, great. So we've got these powerful cognitive tools: retrieval, spacing, interleaving, elaboration, Feynman, dual coding, lots to work with.
Yep, the mental toolkit.
But none of it matters if you can't actually sit down and do it right, if you keep putting it off.
Exactly, that cognitive effort, it takes energy. And if your schedule's a mess or you're constantly procrastinating, you won't have that energy.
Which leads us nicely into section 2, time management, and finally tackling procrastination.
Yeah, managing your time and energy is the foundation. Otherwise, that mental fatigue from retrieval practice, it just turns into, I'll do it later.
So where do we start? The basics.
Always start with the basics. Get organized. Use a planner, a calendar, whatever works for you. Get all your deadlines, assignments, study blocks in there. Daily habit.
But just writing it down isn't enough, is it? I often write study for exam and then stare at it.
Right. That's the trap of vague goals. Study biology is useless. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
You have to set specific, measurable goals for each study session. Not study bio, but review Chapter 7 concepts and answer the 5 practice questions at the end of Section 7.3.
Ah, much clearer. Gives you something concrete to aim for.
Exactly. It provides a finish line for that session, makes it feel achievable, less overwhelming.
Okay, specificity helps. But what about when the whole list just looks terrifyingly long? How do you decide what to do first? Prioritization.
Good question. The playbook suggests ranking tasks based on 2 factors. Urgency, how soon is it due, and importance, how much does it matter for your overall goal.
Urgency and importance. Okay.
But here's a key insight. Don't just do the urgent stuff. Tackle the most important or the most difficult tasks when your energy is highest.
Oh, interesting. So do the hard stuff first.
For most people, yeah. That usually means morning, when your focus is sharper. Get that demanding retrieval practice or complex problem solving done then, not when you're tired in the evening.
That makes sense. Fight the temptation to do easy email checks first.
Exactly. Use your peak energy for peak tasks.
Now, what about those really huge projects? The massive essay, the giant report. They just scream, procrastinate me, because they feel so big.
Yeah, the sheer size is intimidating. The strategy here is chunking. You have to break it down.
Smaller pieces.
Much smaller. Tiny, manageable micro steps. Your goal isn't write essay. It's find 3 sources for the introduction, or draft the first body paragraph, or even just outline section 2.
Makes it easier to just start, reduces that initial friction.
Massively. Getting started is often the hardest part.
Okay, but what about that moment? You're sitting there, you know you need to start, maybe you've broken it down, but you just can't. You're stuck. Inertia.
Ah, yes. The moment of doom. For that, we need an anti-procrastination trick. The playbook calls it the 5-minute goal.
5-minute goal.
You tell yourself, okay, I only have to work on this for 5 minutes, just 5.
That's it.
That's it. Psychologically, it lowers the barrier to starting so much. And what usually happens,
So you keep going.
often, yeah, once you've overcome that initial inertia, the momentum builds. But even if you only do the 5 minutes, hey, that's 5 minutes of progress you wouldn't have had otherwise.
I like that. Very practical. Okay, so we know what to do cognitively, and we have strategies for when to do it and how to start. But how do we maintain the focus needed for that deep work?
Perfect transition. That brings us to section 3. Concentration, focus, and, importantly, well-being. Because you need the right environment and the right energy.
Environment first. How crucial is the actual study space?
It's non-negotiable, really. You need a dedicated space. Ideally quiet, definitely clutter-free.
Tidy desk, tidy mind.
Sort of, yeah. It's about signaling to your brain. This space means focus. A messy, distracting environment sends the opposite signal. It creates mental clutter, even if it's quiet.
And then there's the modern enemy, the phone.
Oh, the phone, yes.
Yeah.
Digital discipline is absolutely key.
What does that look like?
Phone on, silent. And ideally, Not just silent, but in another room entirely, out of sight, out of mind.
That takes willpower.
It does. If you're working on a computer, use website blockers.
Yeah.
Block social media, news sites, whatever your particular poison is. And an important audio tip from the playbook.
Music, good or bad?
It depends. If you need background noise,
Yeah.
okay. But only instrumental or ambient music, absolutely no lyrics.
Why no lyrics?
Because music with words engages the language processing parts of your brain. Those are the same parts you need for reading, for understanding, for thinking in words. You're forcing them to compete.
Ah, didn't think of that. Okay, environment controlled, phone banished. How do we stop ourselves from burning out during a long session? You can't just sprint mentally for hours.
You definitely can't. And you shouldn't try. That's where structured breaks come in. They are vital, not just for rest, but for consolidating the learning.
So, planned breaks, not just when you feel tired.
Exactly. The playbook highlights one popular method, the Pomodoro technique.
The tomato timer.
That's the one. You work with intense focus for, say, 25 minutes. Then you take a mandatory short break, maybe 5 minutes. Completely step away.
Okay.
After about 4 of those cycles, those Pomodoros, you take a longer break, 15 to 30 minutes.
And that structure helps?
It does. It prevents burnout, keeps you fresh, and those short breaks actually help your brain process the information you just crammed in. Plus, it provides little rewards along the way.
Makes sense. Now, it's easy to focus just on the mental side of concentration, but the sources were really clear this is physical too.
Oh, absolute fundamental. The mind-body connection is critical for cognitive function. Focus requires physical energy.
So we're talking basics like sleep.
Yes. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. Sleep isn't downtime. It's when your brain does heavy lifting, consolidating memories, clearing out waste products. It's crucial for learning.
And other things, hydration, food.
All of it. Stay hydrated. Dehydration tanks concentration. Eat a balanced diet. Maybe include some of those brain foods rich in omega-3s or antioxidants. And physical activity.
Exercise helps focus.
Definitely. Even just a brisk walk gets the blood flowing, reduces stress, and clears your head. It's a powerful tool.
Okay, one last point before we wrap up. We've talked a lot about studying material you already have, but active learning starts earlier, doesn't it? Like in the classroom itself.
It absolutely does. Focus and active learning should begin the moment you first encounter the material.
So, taking better notes.
Yes, but active note-taking, not just transcribing. Use a system like the Cornell method where you leave space for keywords and summary questions. Or try mind mapping to visually connect ideas as you hear them.
And then reviewing those notes soon after.
Crucial step. A quick review shortly after class while it's still fresh helps solidify it massively. And, participate. Ask questions. Engage with the material right from the start. That begins the retrieval process immediately.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground, from retrieval practice all the way to sleep and hydration.
It's a holistic system.
So, for you listening, the big takeaway here seems to be shifting how you think about learning. This playbook isn't about logging more hours. It's about the quality of your engagement.
Exactly. Active techniques, smart organization, and taking care of your physical well-being. That's the recipe. Study smarter, truly smarter, not just harder or longer.
Which brings up that Feynman technique again. You said true mastery is being able to explain something simply.
Right.
What does that imply about the notes we should be taking? Should they be super detailed, capturing everything, or?
Well, that's a great question, isn't it? Maybe the act of taking simpler, more organized notes is actually more effective precisely because it forces you to achieve that clarity and do that simplification work up front. Maybe less is more if it's the right less.
Interesting. Note-taking a simplification, not just recording. I like that. And one final thought, building on interleaving.
Okay.
You mentioned mixing subjects helps the brain make connections and discriminate. What if you took that to an extreme? Like, what if you deliberately scheduled study blocks for wildly different subjects back to back? Say, an hour of deep history reading, immediately followed by an hour of calculus problems.
Whoa. History, then calculus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could forcing your brain to make that huge context switch actually train it to see bigger picture connections, to be more flexible, rather than getting stuck in the details of one domain? Something to think about next time you plan your study time.